You can't always control the way you feel. Some of you know this, but you can always control the way you respond.
For as long as I feel like it.
For forever.
There's a lot of things to do around here.
I know.
For the kids.
I need you helping me in the yard.
For the kids.
Oh, for the love of.
For the love.
For someone else. For each other.
For the past.
For the future.
Hey, I'm really excited about jumping into part 3 of this series. Actually, that's a lie. I'm nervous about jumping into part 3 today. If I'm being really, really honest, when it comes to time to talk to the dudes, I'm like, I got you. We're going to talk about it. And actually, some wives told me, they're like, man, you went really hard on the husbands. Are you going to go that hard on us on Sunday? I was like, no, I'd like to live past 35. Thank you. So I'm going to do my best to be as encouraging and uplifting, but also as helpful as humanly possible. When we show up to church on Sunday and we're connecting this way, like my hope is that everything that we do here at Anthem, that it's applicable, that it's helpful, and that it's challenging. It should be challenging in some way, shape, and form. So here's what I want you to know. If you're a wife in the room, here's what I already know about you, is that you're wonderful and you're great. You're probably doing such a great job. And so today we're just going to talk about some teeny tiny little changes that we can make. And I also just genuinely want you to know that a lot of women have helped speak into the series, including my wonderful wife, who is just my best friend in the whole wide world and is a mental health therapist. And we talk about these things all the time because there's so many interesting parallels between what I do and what she gets to do. And so it's such a neat thing for us to talk about as a couple. We do not have a perfect marriage, but my goodness, I'm so grateful for what we have and for who I have. And I hope you feel the same way about your spouse as well. So over these past couple of weeks, we've been talking about love and we talk about marriage. And that just like in that song, that when a man and woman come together, when they decide to get married, and they, especially if they're followers of Jesus and they commit their lives together to be husband and wife, that there's this third thing that's involved in that it's not just two people coming together, but that God's involved in it too. It's why in Scripture we hear about a cord with 3 strands is not easily broken, and we can tie the knot, and then we can just forget about it and pretend like it's just going to be all okay on its own, and that's not a great strategy. And so we want to tighten the knot. So we talked about how it's really easy to fall in love, actually, because falling in love only requires attraction. Some of you know this because you fell in love with 15 different people in middle school and high school. You can all think of, think of his name, ladies, he was just so cute, wasn't he? That one boy. And now you're like, I'm so glad I didn't marry him. He sent me a friend request on Facebook. He ain't cute anymore. Some of you know, you dodged the bullet. You're like, Travis didn't do well. Yeah. But falling in love requires attraction, right? But staying in love, it takes some effort. It takes a plan. It takes actual input into the relationship. It takes investment and sacrifice. So staying in love requires action. And the thing that we've talked about these past couple of weeks is that we believe here at Anthem and have seen, and Scripture points to this in so many different ways, that the best way that marriage works, that when marriage is working at its best, doesn't matter the difference in personality types, the difference in upbringing, any of it, that when marriage is firing on all cylinders, when it's really working well, it's two people who've decided to be in a submission competition with one another. And it looks just like this. I'm going to make your deal a bigger deal than my deal. And when two people are willing to say that, when husband and wife are willing to say to one another, you know what, I've got things that matter to me, and I'm not saying that they aren't going to matter anymore. I'm just going to say, I'm going to commit, in fact, to make your deal a bigger deal than my deal. That when it comes time for us to choose who's going to go first, I'm going to say, no, you go first. And she's going to be over here, and she's saying, no, this time for sure, you go first. And when that happens well, marriages thrive. But ultimately, the thing that a submission competition requires of me and requires of you is it requires us to submit. And this is the part that we don't like so much, right? Because we're like, we really like the idea of submission competition until it's time for us to do our part in it. But isn't it just true that, let's just pretend for a second that maybe you're doing a great job of this, but even if you're not, and maybe you don't like the idea of submission competition, isn't it true that it's the way that you would love to be loved? Isn't it true that when you think about the idea of like, you know what, I'm gonna make your deal a bigger deal than my deal, and maybe you don't like that because you're like, my husband's deal is the dumbest deal. Like maybe your husband's like me, I'm so simple. If you pet me and tell me I'm great, I'll walk through walls. I'll run at hell with a water pistol. Just pet me and tell me I'm great. Those are the only things I need. Maybe your husband's really simple like that, and you're like, just touch him, or, babe, my back, like, maybe it drives you nuts and you're like, do I really have to make that deal a bigger deal than my deal? My deal's way better. It makes way more sense to you, right? It's so easy for us, but isn't it true that you would love to be loved that way? And ladies, especially for you, this is such a huge part of what we talked about last week when I was really challenging the men in the room, the husbands in the room, that at our core, I'm not a lady, for those of you wives, at your core, the big question that your soul is asking, whether you're fully aware of it or not, is this: am I loved? And on an even deeper level inside of your marriage, the question is, am I valuable to you? That love is best expressed to you when time and time again, your husband proves that he sees you as valuable, as someone worth investing in and caring for and sacrificing on behalf of. That the best person in the world, I believe, and Scripture makes clear, the best person in the world, in fact, the only person in the world that can truly answer this question for you is your Heavenly Father and the person that you've decided to spend the rest of your life with. But in unhealthy scenarios, we will absolutely find something or someone to answer this question for us, and when we do, our marriage suffers. And so husbands, we talked about last week how your role as a husband, that in this submission competition, as Paul talks about it, that your job is to go to great lengths to sacrifice so that your wife understands, and not just in your words, but in your deeds and the way that you serve and love your family. That the way that you lead your home is by going first in all of these areas that answer this question for your wife. Am I valuable to you? This week, we're talking to the wives in the room. And wives, whether you're aware of it or not, and your husband may on the ride home go, yeah, that's not true for me, man. I don't need that. I'm fine. He's lying to you. He's lying to you. Here's the thing that is etched in every man's soul that he's asking himself, and it starts when they're really teeny tiny. They are asking this: do I measure up? Do I measure up? Do I have what it takes? Do I have what it takes to not just get your attention, but to keep it? To not just get your affection, but to keep it and to deserve it and to earn it. At the core of every man, they're asking the question, am I enough? And inside of marriage, they're asking the question, am I enough for you? Am I doing enough? Am I tall enough? Am I still good looking enough? Am I providing enough? Am I showing up enough? Am I enough? And when marriage is operating really well and two people are in a submission competition, wives, you're answering this question well for your husband because you're the best person to answer it. The best person to answer this question for your husband is his Heavenly Father and you. And when it's not getting answered at home, and when he's not investing in his personal relationship with Jesus, and he's not getting that question answered and fulfilled by him, he's going to get it filled somewhere else. He's going to find the answer to this question at work or in some dumb hobby that he picks up. He's going to be at the golf and be like, I'm enough. And it's like, the golf score is not saying it, buddy. It's not saying you're enough, So he starts fudging the numbers, Or maybe he becomes a work. I see this so often, church. So much of this series is written based on interactions that I've had with so many of you, and I love being your pastor. I so love sitting across from couples who are going through hard stuff and helping you walk through it. It's one of my favorite things to do. But it's also so hard for me when I sit across from a man and a woman, and it's so abundantly clear to me that they have stopped making each other the priority. They've stopped sacrificing and being in this submission competition with one another, and the husband has decided that the best way to get this question answered is at work. And so they pour themselves into work because it's the one place that tells them, yeah, you measure up, and yeah, you're enough. Or it's with the secretary, or some mess he's looking at online, or, hanging out with the bros, and we're all enough, and because you are, bro, you are, But we will find a way to get it answered. We will find a way for it to be answered. And wives, the most important thing for you to understand in today's message is that your husband needs to get the answers to this question from you. You should be the loudest answer of this question for him. And that in the context and in the understanding of the passage that we've spent time in over these past 2 weeks in Ephesians 5, which is this passage that we talked about, is like easily misunderstood, and it's been leveraged in different ways and at different times to hold different people accountable for things they shouldn't be held accountable for, and to keep women down and all kinds of other stuff. And I want to just unpack that for us today to clear up so much confusion around this passage in Ephesians 5 that talks about submission. Paul starts this letter that he's writing. He says this, he says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. This is the big umbrella statement. He's like, hey, before you read anything else that I'm about to tell you, and before you start feeling some kind of way about what I'm about to say, filter it through this. I'm telling both of you, husbands and wives, to submit to one another. Why and how? Out of your love and connection and commitment and relationship to Christ. Paul in this moment almost embraces what you and I know to be true as married people, which is that we can't do it. We can't do it by ourselves, and we're going to need a higher power to help us get it done. Because I don't care how similar or how dissimilar you are from your spouse, or how great they are, or the context of your relationship, marriage, even at its best, is hard work. And so Paul would say, hey, wives, for you today, I want you to remember your husbands. Just remember last week. Remember when you liked last week? I actually had a wife tell me, she was like, I loved last week's message. And I was like, yeah, duh. And she goes, oh, yeah, that's kind of a silly thing to say, isn't it? I was like, we'll see how next week goes, And she was like, yeah, I'm not excited about that part. But remember, your husbands have a big thing that they've been tasked with, right? They got 9 verses. You got 3, right? So let's just be on the same page that in light of your husband's sacrifice and his willingness to lay it all down, you too have been asked and challenged with this task of submitting to your husband out of reverence for Christ. So in the very next verse, when Paul writes, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do the Lord. And we read this and it stirs something up in you. And maybe you grew up in a church context where this verse was the only verse in this passage that was preached. I just want you to know that we're not that church. That's not what we're saying here. Paul is saying, hey, wives, I'm going to explain in these following verses how husbands and wives ought to orient themselves towards one another. You're both supposed to submit to one another, that marriage works best inside of a submission competition. And we, especially in today's culture, and I talked about this last week, that when husbands were told to love their wives and sacrifice for them, that was the thing that was like this cultural, step on the toe thing. And the guys were like, wait, I'm supposed to do what? And the wives read their part and they're like, yep, sounds about right. They moved on. Today we read this and there's all these emotions and feelings and cultural things that stir up in the hearts of women. And I just want you to know, if that's true for you, it makes perfect sense to me. But I want to clear up for you what Paul means and what he doesn't mean, and what Jesus means and what he doesn't mean, and what Scripture has to say when it comes to submission. Wives, here we go. Here is what submission is not. Submission is not a statement of value. This is in no way Paul saying, wives, you are second-rate citizens when it comes to your husband, or women are less than men. All of us have been made in the image of God, the imago Dei, that what you have been made with, how God made you, you are an equal value to a man, to your husband, all of that. We are equal, but obviously different. Ladies, have you ever met a guy before? Man, have you ever met a woman before? We are equal, but we are different. Submission is not a statement of value. It doesn't mean that husbands are more important than wives. It's not at all what this means. Submission is also not universal to all men. Notice in Paul's opening statement in 22, he says, submit yourselves to your own husband This is not, hey, all men should tell women what to do. This isn't talking about your jerk of a boss at work, that bosses all the ladies around and should lose his job. That's not what we're talking about. This is not universal to all men. This is a choice to submit yourself, to be in a submission competition, husbands and wives submitting to one another. Additionally, submission is not a suppression of your identity. Marriages do not thrive when two people are choosing to make themselves smaller or make themselves less of who God made them to be. Marriage at its best is this opportunity for a husband and a wife to come together with one another and to fill each other up and to create an environment in which both people thrive and become exactly who God intended them to be. This isn't about becoming a TikTok trad wife, You don't have to start wearing flowy dresses and have an apron and get really good at sourdough. That is not. If you are good at sourdough, I love sourdough. So you can bring it by Anthem anytime. It's good sourdough, but I love sourdough, I'm saying. That's not what this is. That's not what this is. This is not about you not being a girl boss. Go be a girl boss. Go be who God has made you to be. That's not what this is about. Submission is not about making yourself less and just squishing yourself down until everything about you is no longer true. Marriage at its best, a submission competition at its best, helps both of you grow into who it is that God has made you to be and how the two of you work together to become one. Submission is also not an obligation to follow sin. This does not mean, hey, wives, submit to your own husbands, even when they're doing really dumb stuff that's going to ruin your marriage and ruin your financial situation. That's not what this is. Submission is not about blindly following. Well, I go where you go. No, if he goes somewhere dumb, you don't go too. Okay? And I don't mean dumb like a place you don't like. I hate that restaurant. John said not to follow you there. That's not at all what I'm saying, okay? What I am saying is that if your husband is going, hey, I have an idea on how to make our marriage better, and then suggests a stupid thing that you should not do that will not make your marriage better. I've sat across from couples that have had really dumb ideas about how to make things better in their marriage. And guess what? It always ends in broken stuff. Submission is not an obligation to follow sin. And also, it's not identical in every home. Because guess what? God made all of you uniquely different. Submission competitions look different in every single home. This is not about roles. It's not about chores. It's about none of that. My wife and I feel like do a pretty good job of working together as a team most of the time. My wife is a mental health therapist and sees clients most of the time until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I cook 90% of the meals in our home because I want to make sure that my wife comes home and dinner's ready so that she's ready to go. This is not about roles. It's not about, traditional household duties. It's not about any of that. Now, if that works inside of your home, great. If it doesn't, great. This is all about heart posture and relationship inside of a submission competition. So here's what submission is, and I'm going to move through these quickly because they're on the screen. You don't need me to explain them very much. Submission is absolutely an act of obedience to Christ. Paul makes that clear, and Jesus himself made it clear that being in a submission competition is not something he described, it's something he prescribed for me and for you, for those of us that are married. It's also free and voluntary. Last week, I put a picture of John Cena up there if you were here. I said, this is not what submission is about. It's not go to sleep, tap out. That's not what this is. Marriage does not work well that way. Ladies, stop trying to put your husband in sleeper hold when it comes to things. Husbands, stop, just stop. Stop doing all of that, right? Submission also is a reflection of the gospel, and it's an invitation to lead. It's an invitation in certain moments for different people to pick up the slack. I shared this at the last service. There was about a 1.5-year stint where I was working easily 70 to 80 hours a week here at Anthem. It was just a season where it required that much of me and my wife, and I prayed about it, and we talked about it, and she knew that in that season, there were burdens that I carried and responsibilities that I carried that she saw, and she goes, hey, that looks really heavy. Let me carry that for you. And my wife took the lead and went first in so many ways in that season, and I'm so incredibly grateful for that. Submission is not just about idly waiting and sitting around. It's not what this is about. Submission is an opportunity for you to care for one another and to carry each other's burdens. And lastly, it's a reflection of the gospel. It's the purest picture of Jesus' love and relationship with the church. It's why the local church and the global church is called the bride of Christ, because there's no purer picture of the love of our Heavenly Father for his people than a husband and a wife, two imperfect people who are figuring out what it looks like to love one another. And that's really, really hard. And there was no perfect bride and there was no perfect groom. So how do we figure all of that out? Just like you and I were not the perfect person for Jesus to die for, he did it anyway. This is why the enemy comes after marriages more than anything else. It's because the quickest way to break down and erode the foundation of the local church and of your ability to raise and parent your children well, all of those things, he's coming for it. And some of you have experienced it. You've had a front row seat to watch all these dumb little things that show up and are tearing down this thing that was once so firm and so strong. He wants you to hate each other. And in some cases, he's winning. And the way that this shows up is so interesting to me. It's always so interesting how two people who at one point were so madly in love with each other and stood across from each other and committed their life to each other and posted about each other all the time on, social media. We're the happiest. He's the cutest and best, And then little by little, things just fall apart. And to really help us wrap our heads around this, I wanted to get a couple who I think can help me best explain how this thing happens to you. You guys probably haven't met them before. This is two good friends of mine. This is Mr. and Mrs. Mugg. Everybody say hi to Mr. and Mrs. Mugg. Yes, I did make this all by myself. Thank you for noticing. Mrs. Mugg, as you can see, is having a great hair day. And Mr. Mugg, for some reason, he lost an eye. And she's fine. He's not. And looks like a detective pirate, apparently. So here's how this plays out, right? Inside of our relationships, right? Inside of our marriages, there's these things that we've built, and we're like, we're doing this, we're doing all these things really well, and we fall in love with each other, and we're so excited, and he's so cute, right, and she's just the best, and you guys tell your parents, oh my gosh, he's the greatest man I've ever met. And your dad's like, right? He's just the best. And then somehow in a matter of a very short amount of time, the whole thing blows apart. And it's because throughout your relationship, because we're two different people and we all have different opinions and we have different backgrounds and we have different personalities, we have these little moments. That was bigger than I thought it was going to be. I apologize. That was way bigger than I thought it was going to be. We have these little moments where we have these little run-ins, right? And it's something so dumb at first, isn't it? It's like, okay, whose job is it to let the dog out this time? I don't know. I don't remember, but nobody did because there's poop here now, right? And then, that happens. We have these little issues, right? And then, or maybe a bill didn't get paid or there's financial stress and it's starting to get... And all of a sudden, two people who somehow loved each other so incredibly much have somehow found a way to bring the worst out of each other. And I've sat across from couples in the gallery right over there. And you can see it, man. When they sit down, the arms crossed, they're about as out of the chair as you can be. And I'm like, so how we doing, guys? We're fine. I'm like, I don't meet with fine people in here. What's going on? And this happened a couple of weeks ago, actually, and I told them I would tell the story. Obviously, I'm not going to share their names. They're totally fine with it. But I said, no, seriously, what's going on? And the wife just speaks up. She goes, he brings the worst out of me. And I was like, oh, okay. And the husband, he goes, like, just as quick as she said it, he goes, I didn't put it in there. I think it's just in there on its own. And I was like, and she looked at him, and her hair caught on fire, and the skin peeled back from her. And I was like, he's on to something there, because she's like, no, when he does, and she could give me the list. She's like, when he does, and all the things, and he's just like dead inside. She's just giving him the list, and she goes, it's just nobody else can bring it out of me like him. And I was like, this is going to be a longer meeting than I thought it was going to be, you know? And here's just what's true in these moments is that somehow two people who love each other so incredibly much have found a way, even in the midst of a submission competition and even in the midst of, being attracted to each other, to bring the worst out of each other. And he was right. He's not responsible for what is in there. You are. Because what's in you is your responsibility. And I get it. Like, ladies, you have multicolored beads in here because your emotions are diverse and multicolored. My wife has a feelings wheel in her room. There are thousands of words that can be used to describe emotions. It's amazing. There's often this little lie that's told that women are more emotional than men. It's not true. We're just as emotional. We just have about 4 words for it. We're angry. We're tired. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be all right. I'm mad. And that's it. We just sound like cavemen. It's like, me, angry, And you have way more words for it. God wired you to have more words for it. Husbands, pro tip, if you want to have better conversations with your wife around conflict, get more words, okay? Seriously, find better ways to describe what it is that's going on inside of you. But you are responsible for what's in you and you're responsible for what comes out. Wives, same thing is true for you. What's in you that shows up in the midst of conflict is your responsibility. And ultimately, it's connected to respect because submission in its purest form is expressed through respect. And I'm not talking about respect like, respecting someone's position. I'm talking about respecting who someone's been made to be in their purest form. Paul understood this because in verse 33, at the very end of this passage, this is what Paul writes. He says, hey, just so I'm on the same page, I'm going to give you all this stuff, and most of it's going to be for the dudes because I got to clear some things up for the fellas in this new way of living and loving and following Jesus. He says, just so we're on the same page, husbands, each of you also must love his wife as he loves himself. And this was a absolutely culture-breaking, countercultural idea for the husbands. And oh, by the way, guys, this is something that we're just not naturally wired to do. You might think that you are, but you're just not. We're not naturally wired to love someone else as much as we love ourselves. And Paul knew it. Paul knew that we're going to have these deep questions that we need answered in our soul, and that guess what? We will figure out how to get them answered. We will beg, borrow, steal, hunt. We will chase it down. We will find the thing. We will find fulfillment somewhere. And Paul goes, you are not supposed to find fulfillment anywhere than from Christ first, your wife second, and everything else flows from that. And this is going to be a thing that you're going to struggle with a lot, and you're going to need reminders, and you're going to need a mad message from John, last week, not mad. I wasn't mad. I was disappointed. We're going to need to have some conversations. And then Paul also knew, because guess what? He was around couples. And he would say, wives, this is one's going to be hard for you. And you're going to go, that's not hard for me. I respect my husband. He's going to go, hold on. And wives, respect your husband. Now, here's what's true. Husbands and wives are obviously both supposed to love each other and both supposed to respect each other. Paul is specifically pointing at 2 things that he knows are not going to come naturally to us. So wives, your responsibility inside of this thing is to figure out, how do you submit to your husband through your respect to him? And it's really hard for us to do. It's really hard for all of us to do, but it's especially hard for you. It just is. And some of it's connected to upbringing, and some of it's connected to culture, and some of it's connected to emotions and feelings, and some of it's just connected to the reality of this human life. But respect is always going to be hard. And for you today, in the way that last week I went after the husbands, and I said, husbands, I just need you to know, it's going to be really hard for you, but you need to make a bigger deal out of your wife's deal than your deal. So when she says to you very clearly, I need you to stop leaving the blue cup right here on the counter, you go, this is important to you, so it's important to me. It doesn't come naturally for us. or whatever her thing is, whatever your thing is. Wives, this thing is I'm telling you, I have sat across in my 12 years of ministry, probably close to 50 to 60 couples. And the number one storyline for why their marriage isn't working is because there's a husband who is not adequately sacrificing for his family, who's made himself a bigger deal than everybody else and is lazy or working way too hard and then coming home and sitting on the couch and drinking Mountain Dew and, well, it's everybody else's problem. And it's wives who have either lost it or chosen not to respect their husband anymore. And for the sake of today, I just want to make clear that one of the primary ways that we show respect to our spouse is through our responses. One of the primary ways that you and I, and this is true for all of us, but it's especially true inside of marriage, the way that we show respect, the way that you answer the question for your husband, do I measure up? Am I doing a good job? Hey, I need some response here. I need to know, do you love me? Do you still think I look good? Am I doing a good job? Because in the moment, the way that you respond when I fall short or when I don't measure up, and I'm not going to measure up, I'm going to make mistakes, I'm going to forget, I'm going to screw it up. The way that you respond communicates to me, to my soul, whether or not I got it. And what's coming out of us in these moments where, husband, you're coming home and you've had a day, and your wife's had a day because she works and you work, and obviously all of that is important. But man, you just say, I'm exhausted today. And wives, you say, yeah, me too. You don't think I'm exhausted, and you minimize the thing that he was just going, well, I'm just trying to show you some blue beads. And you're like, I've got all these beads and this happens. Eventually your husband will put a lid on it. And here's what I've seen more times than not in marriages. Husbands attempting to share with their wives how they feel or how something they've done has made them feel. And when the husband shares with the wife, this is how you made me feel, the wife has an emotional response that ensures that husband is not going to share that story again, because it's just easier for him not to. Wives, if your husband has to deal with how what you did made him feel, makes you feel, and there's this, huge response to all of that, and I get that. I understand those responses. It makes perfect sense to me. But when you do that, your husband just won't tell you anymore, because it's just easier that way. And what begins to happen is you start to think you're doing better than you actually are, because there's less bumps in the road, because he's just not telling you how he's doing anymore. And then you wonder, don't you? Because you're like, man, he's just so quiet. He must be doing great. He's like, no. If I'm really quiet, I'm probably not doing so great. And these things that come out of us, true for men and women, but wives, this one's for you today. The stuff that comes out in moments of frustration, the things that come out in the way you speak to your kid, the things that come out in the way that you treat your husband, the things that come out in traffic, they are your responsibility, because they're your response. And you know where it comes from? It comes from your heart. It just does. There's a verse in Proverbs that gets misused quite often. It's Proverbs 4:23. This is the commandment that all of us have been given, but I'd like to apply it to the wives today. This is what it says. Above everything else, folks, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. This is advice that this is such a church girl, woman thing, where it's like, guard your heart, girl. I don't think he's good for you. Guard your heart. That is good advice. It is good advice, okay? But that's not what this is about. Guarding your heart, especially in relation to marriage and in relation to adult relationships, it's about protecting stuff from getting in there that undermines what's going on out there. It's about protecting your heart from believing things about your husband or about your kids or about other people that just aren't true. And what ends up happening is that all of this stuff becomes really toxic and your husband has no idea what to do with it. And you guys sit in counseling and all we're talking about is spilled beads instead of the source of where the spilled beads are coming from. So guard your heart, because everything that's happening inside of your marriage on your side and his is flowing from your heart. Growing up, I was the oldest of 4. My mom had all kinds of one-liners. She was good at that. She had songs that she would sing. She was good at that too, drives me nuts. Now I sing them. I could sing them to Joshua. He'd be like, where'd that one come from? I'm like, me and my, Gigi came up with that one, right? So it flows from her heart. My mom would say this all the time when me and my siblings would fight each other. One time I was so mad at my sister, I bashed her over the head with a super soaker. She had to, not a good move, mind you. Don't get any of these kids. She had to go get stitches, And I'm like, Mom, Sarah made me so angry. And my mom said, and she has said this thousands of times, parents, you can steal this. You can't always control the way you feel. Some of you know this, but you can always control the way you respond. You cannot always control the way you feel. You can't always control that this is going to happen or that there's stuff inside of you that's probably already in there. And here's what I want to just embrace. I know that some of the stuff that's in here, ladies, it was given to you a long time ago. It's storylines that you picked up on along the way that break my heart because of how somebody treated you or something that somebody said about you. I sat across from somebody recently and I just sat there and just cried with this person because she knows that there's a lot of stuff that impacts the way that she responds. And it's directly connected to the fact that when she was conceived, her dad didn't want her and really never did. And that storyline has stayed with her almost her entire life. It has stayed with her entire life. And it's directly connected to what happens when these beats come out. So you and I, we can't always control the way we feel. You can't be in control of your past and the things that you've experienced. All of that is true. And yet, we can control the way that we respond. And your response, my response, our response, but wives in particular, your response is directly connected to your respect. It's directly connected to your part in this submission competition, that when your husband forgets to do a thing or he says something knuckleheaded or he tells a story at a dinner party for the 15th time with completely made up information, that the way that you respond in that moment is directly connected to how your husband sees himself and the way that you're answering the question for him. Does he have what it takes? And when we get it wrong, it breaks stuff. And I've watched it, and I've seen couples who, not even 6 months ago, I'm like, I thought you guys were doing great. And they're like, we were. And then just beads started coming out all over the place. Wives, if you hear anything else that I say today, that I just want to share with you that respect in this way, that your effort of respect is all about guarding your heart and making sure that the things that you're allowing to get in there, that they're good things. Because respect is the practical expression of submission. And it's the thing that you and I, that wives uniquely have been commanded to figure out and monitor and stay on top of. So here's what it looks like very practically. There's really 5 ways, and there's so many more, but there's 5 ways that you have an opportunity in these key moments. And I've seen this so many times. These are the 5 things that I'm like, yep, these are the 5 things I see over and over and over and over again that are undermining relationship. We don't do it well, and maximizing it and feeling that we do it right. Respect through priorities. Sometimes your husband's deal is a dumb deal and you don't like it. And it's like, oh, I hate that deal, So golf, hunting, or whatever the thing is. Respect through priorities. Make his deal a bigger deal than your deal. And I promise you, when you do, he will do the same for you. It just works that way. Also, your kids are not your number one priority. Please hear me on this. Your children are not your number one priority. It goes God, your relationship with him, your relationship with your husband, and from those 2 things flows everything else. If you make your children the number one priority inside of your marriage, in 18 years, you won't have a husband, you won't have a wife, you'll have a roommate. And you will have to relearn how to love your spouse and how to connect with them. I've seen so many couples get divorced after their kids leave for high school. And it's not because they were sitting around we'll just wait till the kids leave. No. It's that they, for 18 years, stopped loving each other and making each other a priority, and then the whole thing fell apart. And the kids left, and there weren't things to distract them anymore, and there weren't things to, mom's taxi and, God first, your husband second, and then your kids. And I promise you, your kids will be better for it too. Respect your husband through your priorities. Respect in communication. I don't even need to dig into this one. You guys already know this. Respect in public. Hey, none of your friends think it's cute and fun to be around you when you guys are like taking the little undermined shots at each other. You guys all know that couple. If you don't know that couple, you may be the couple. But I'm just kidding. It just means you have healthy friends. Don't do it. Don't do the underhanded thing. Don't do that. It's not cute. Nobody likes it, okay? Respect in needs. Find out what your husband's love languages are. Fill them. Fill them, fill them, fill them. Wives, I have this conversation all the time with men, and I have it all the time with couples. I'm just going to say it from the stage. I don't care. When your husband is like all up on you and touching you, you're like, oh my gosh, stop touching me. Why do you have to touch me all the time? It's not about something physical. God has hardwired your husband to connect with you, to feel closer to you through physical touch. It's just true. It's a biological fact. And so reframe in your mind, like when he's like, just be like, hey, I know you want to connect right now. Not like, why are you so all up on me all the time? He's going, I'm just trying to feel close to you right now. I'm just trying to connect with you. I promise if you can reframe that, it will make a huge difference inside of your marriage. Husbands, don't take advantage of that fact I just shared, okay? All right. Respect the needs. And then last but not least, respect through assumptions. Stop writing telenovelas about your husband inside of your head and in your heart. It's not that complicated. It's not that serious. Your husband most likely is staring out the window, not thinking about something crazy with, the secretary or whatever. He is thinking about nothing. Sometimes we just need space to think about nothing. I promise it's not that complicated. Stop assuming bad intentions for the things your husband does, unless they're actually bad things, right? And if you do have some concerns or if there are some assumptions that you're making, ask him about it. The books that you read, it's just not feeding these things. Like, I promise you, your life's not a soap opera. It's not that complicated. Your husband loves you. Talk to him about it. Don't build made-up storylines that aren't true about your husband. Fellas, as we wrap up, last week, this was your game plan because falling in love requires attraction. Staying in love requires action. Here's what I asked you fellas to do. Daily, pray. Weekly, connect. Monthly, refuel. And yearly, reignite. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch last week's message. I've had 3 wives in less than 7 days mention to me that their husbands have yet to pray with them. Husbands, pray with your wives. Wives, create an environment and a posture where your husband feels comfortable enough to pray with you. It takes 2 to tango. If he's not praying with you yet, there may be a piece of this that you carry too. Wives, here's your game plan. Ready? We're wrapping it up. Daily, affirm. The only person that can tell your husband the most true things about him is you. Answer the question for him. Do I measure up? Am I enough? And am I enough for you? The answer is you're more than enough. That's right. Okay, weekly, we provide a place. We provide connection. You provide for your husband the way that God has hardwired him to need to be provided for through his love languages, even if they're dumb, inconvenient, or annoying. We're just going to do it because his needs are your needs in the same way that your needs are his needs. Monthly, defer. I've challenged him with planning a great date for you and taking you out and trying to do all those things. Just allow him to do it, even if he sucks at it a little bit. Don't micromanage the date. Just enjoy it. Don't hate the date, participate. Okay, here we go. And then yearly, get away. Go spend time with each other. Leave your kids at home because a vacation with our kids is not a vacation. That's right. Okay, it's good for our family. It's not good for your marriage. Yes, you're welcome. Okay, and then yearly, contend. Figure out what's the dream, what's the hope, and then be the fuel, be the champion, be the fuel for your family's shared vision. And when you do, your marriage will thrive because staying in love requires nothing more than attraction. Falling in love requires nothing more than attraction. But staying in love, it's going to require an action plan. It's going to require you to do something. Spouses, hold each other's hands for the last 5 seconds of this message. I'm going to remind you of this. You only have so much time to love each other. Stop playing games with it. Guard your heart. Sacrifice for your spouse. Stop. I don't want to sit with you in the gallery anymore because you're not doing the things that you know you need to do to allow your marriage to thrive. If you're not thriving right now, I'd love to meet with you. But this series exists to help you tighten the knot. And it's going to take you doing some things that you're not naturally equipped to do, to not just fall in love, but to stay in love. Let me pray for you. Jesus, I just want to pray over the couples right now that are married. God, I'm so glad that they're here. God, I ask that you would give them the strength that they need to continue to put each other first. God, thank you for the wives that so graciously allowed me to speak to them today. God, I ask that you would lead them to be the only person that answers the question that their husband's soul is asking for. Would you challenge them with that? God, it's so easy for us to get distracted by all the things that we need to do. We can get distracted by, all the stuff. God, would you help us turn our attention and our affection on you and on our spouses so that our marriages will thrive? God, for the single men and women that are in the room, maybe some that have given up hope or are holding on to hope or are too young to hope, God, I just ask that you would encourage them through this series, that you would encourage them by the men and women sitting around them that have healthy marriages, God. Would you help men and women in our church who have healthy marriages rise up and be pillars and encouragers and supporters and coaches to the young couples in our church? God, we need more of them. We need more of them. Jesus, we're grateful for your love for us. So you're going to pray. Amen.